All right, so we're going to quick dive into the kind of introduction to drill. So, drill is a fundamental part of any type of organization. And in the Air Force, drill is divided into separate bits, parts. We call these bits units. So within drill, we have kind of six, four, whatever your formation is, and we'll explain a little bit more. But each thing is kind of subdivided into smaller groups. But in essence, we're really looking at kind of the elements as your basic level. Flights, squadrons, groups, and wings is how we kind of organize ourselves. Now, the wing doesn't necessarily drill by direct command, but we'll tie that in a little later. So, what drill is, what is the essence of drill? So, drill consists of the movements by which the flight or the squadron is moved orderly from one place to another. So really, drill is moving a group of individuals, an organization, from one place to another. Now, drill also has standards such as the 24-inch step, the cadence, the distance, and interval that we all establish to ensure that these movements are executed with order and precision. So as we do drill, we're not just looking for that movement from place to place, but we're also looking for the establishment of those standards. So why we kind of understand the why of drill. So the purpose of drill is so that each person to learn the movements that we give, as well as be able to execute those parts exactly as described, and that the individuals learning these movements adapt their movements to those of the group. So you're really learning that camaraderie, that fellowship, as well as that direct leadership by following information and following through. So it's a great leadership tool as a basics for that self-discipline, those attention to details, and all the small details when it comes to drill. So drill is a basement to learn those skills to move forward with. So really, the why is everyone moving together on a command. Now, on the service level, that kind of sounds, like why would you have an organization do this? But again, you look for those smaller details, the attention to detail, those, discipline, the things that we're looking for, and you'll start to see the drill is kind of a base layer to start building those key components of leadership in over just doing a couple cool moves on the drill pad. So, when it comes to drill, as we draw things out, as we kind of lay out, as we instruct, we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page, and we do so using drill symbols. So these are drill symbols for the Air Force. You'll notice that each symbol is kind of a little different, but they have a parent symbol to kind of reference to. So once you start to get the basics of which symbol is which, you can start to realize where they play in the bigger system. So, of course, everyone is either a box, a circle, or some type of shape. So very straightforward. And each box has their corresponding elements to it. So you notice that the base layer, airman, is just a box. But as we move up, we start to add to those components. So any type of leader, guide, kind of follow role where you're going to follow this person is going to have an X in the box. So the element leaders, the guides, the flight sergeants, the first sergeants, they all have those X's in the box. And then the kind of crosses as they go up indicate the level at which they're in command. So as we look to like flight commanders, squadron commanders, group commanders, the more crosses that they have up the top, the more kind of higher in the level they are as they go up. So kind of a quick glance over, you can quickly establish where individuals are and what their role is in formations. So this is a basic flight taking from those drill symbols. So if I draw this on the board, anybody can reference that this is a flight and that I have element leaders, I have a guide, I have my element members, I have my flight sergeant, right? Everyone can quickly establish that without having to draw and write out everything on the board. So it's important to kind of understand drill symbols because this is a great way that we communicate and train how we're going to do movements and things without actually needing to put people in positions and tell them this is what their role is. We can kind of diagram it out, draw what the drill is. So When it comes to drill, we need to also understand the key terms. Key terms. Now, drill has a lot of different wordings, a lot of different things that we're doing. And if we just establish key terms, then anytime somebody references those terms, everyone individual in the group will understand what the key term is and what it means. That way you don't have to constantly re-explain things. You can go back and use the key term, and that term will then imply and build on what I'm trying to explain. So when it comes to that, when I talk about key terms, what does that mean? Well, if I say formation, right, I'm really saying an arrangement of units, group of people. If I say a unit, I'm talking about a part of the formation. So if I have a squadron with 2 flights, if I want to talk about the flights, I don't want to talk all the time about flight 1, flight 2, Alpha flight, Bravo flight. I'm just going to talk about the units within the formation. And I'm going to say this unit, that unit. Very straightforward. And everyone understands that I'm talking about a portion of the formation. If I talk about an element, I'm talking about a specific element in a flight or a unit in a formation. So very straightforward to build upon. So terms are important, and the use of these terms are important, because if you accidentally mistake a term for one or the other, you will then to confuse people down the road. And I see a lot of this with the term of alignment, dress, and cover. Each one has their own individual term and meaning, but they kind of correlate to a different thing. So if you mix them up, if you use them interchangeably, you're going to confuse your members. So make sure you are clear in what you're saying. And if you don't remember what the term is, explain what your goal and outcome is, and people will wrap around the term that you're trying to get to. So kind of the base layer fundamentals, we have, of course, the formation, the unit, the element, which is the base for all drill, right? It's the smallest unit. And an element consists of at least 3 members, but is usually 8 to 12 members. Right? One of them is assigned the position of an element leader. So elements are base. Our base is the element in which all the movement is planned, regulated, or aligned. The go-to kind of spot for all drill is the base. How we determine where to go, what is regulate, the speed at which we move is all in the base. A flight is 2 but not more than 4 elements. So it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, but I'm looking for at least 2 but no more than 4 elements that makes up a flight. Now, the center of a formation is that middle point. On an odd numbered front, and front we're talking about the people in the front row. So if we go back to our diagram, right, the front is going to be this top row. That's going to be our front. So if there is an odd number, then I'm going to center the flight on the center person or element. Now, if it's an even numbered, I'm going to center to the right. So I'm not going to sit in between 2 individuals. I'm going to sit to the right, still in front of an individual. And we're talking about all of the members and how to count up front. You're counting all the personnel in the formation. So we're including the guide and we're including the flight sergeant to make that count in determining the front. And that's how we center the flight. Depth. So depth is the total space from front to rear of any formation. So what we're talking about is the depth of a person. So a lot of times an individual's depth will be considered 12 inches. It varies on person to person, but then in theory you could measure out using distance and your depth. You could draw out the depth and actual space that a flight would take up if you were to assume that everybody is 12 inches. So depth is that. Distance is the space between front to rear of units. So if you're talking about an individual in this case, the distance would be between the person in front of you and you. That's going to be the distance that you place. And this distance we usually want to measure for individuals is 40 inches. So 40 inches from their chest to the backs of the individuals in front of them. This is the distance that we establish. Alignment. Alignment is dress or cover. It is both of them. So if I tell an individual to fix their alignment, I'm telling them to fix their dress or cover. One of the two. Sometimes people interpret this as both. So be careful when you use the word alignment, because if you want to fix a specific thing, use the term dress or cover, and then you can quickly establish what you're really getting after rather than using a cover term of alignment. So, dress. Dress is the alignment of elements side by side or in line, maintaining proper interval. So, when I think about dress, a great way to remember it is dress right, dress. Right? The establishment of that side by side. So if I'm thinking dress, I'm thinking left to right of an individual. If I'm thinking cover, I'm thinking aligning themselves directly to the person behind them. So, right? And this comes off of the command cover. So if I'm kind of trying to remember which is which, dress is left and right, cover is the person in front of them. And they're looking to maintain that proper distance, which is that 40 inches. Again, everything kind of stacks when it comes to terms. If I say cover, I don't have to explain distance to the person that I'm correcting. I can just say cover, and they're going to fix their distance. Next key things is file. So a file is a single columns of person placed one behind each other. Think a line of individuals at the bank. That's going to be a file for us. A rank is a single line of persons placed side by side. So if, again, we're going back to that dress right dress scenario, a rank is going to be those dress. So if you're looking down to make dress right dress corrections, you're looking at the rank from the extreme flank. Now, flank is going to tie into our next one. A flank is extreme right or left of a formation in line or in column. It depends on where they're looking. What is the flank? But the flank is the individual's left or right, not how you view them if you were a flight commander or a flight sergeant, right? The flank is going to be the extreme right or left, all the way on the right, all the way on the left. That is going to be your flank. Your front, again, we talked a little bit about that, is that space occupied by the front of the group and that individual. The guide is going to be the airman designed to regulate the direction and rate of march for the flight. And then the head, of course, is the leading unit in a column. Next, we're going to talk about positions kind of within the flight. So in formations, we have kind of three different ways, well, four if you talk about all the inverted ones, but you have ways that which the formation is faced. So in column formation, it is a formation with a guide and element leaders to the front of each unit. So if I look for a, what formation I'm in, if the element leaders and guides are in the front of a unit, I'm in column formation. If I'm in line formation is the guide and element leaders are to the extreme right flank of each unit. So if they're off to the side in the right position, that I am in line formation. Inverted column, a formation with guide and element leaders to the extreme rear of it is inverted column. So just placing myself on where the guide is, I can establish whether it's in column, line, inverted column, or inverted line. Inverted line. Inverted line is a formation with the guide and element leaders to the extreme left flank of the unit. So we have to understand that in order to talk about columns, lines, inverteds, you'll have to teach flanks. So that way members can quickly identify where their guide and element leaders are and establish that flank to establish their column or inverted column. And then an individual or an interval is the space between individuals placed side by side. So normal interval is an arm's length. Dress right dress, you use normal interval. But close interval is 4 inches. So you can think about at close intervals, dress right dress. Formations. So mass formation is a formation of a squadron or a group in which the component units, the flights, are in column abreast of each other and at close interval. Really close together. That is mass formation. Post is the correct placement for an officer, non-commissioned officer, or airman to stand in formation. When we talk about going to their post, posting in formation, right, we are telling them where they need to go, their correct placement in a formation. Cadence is the uniform step and rhythm of marching. That is the number of steps marched per minute. So that is cadence. So when we talk about cadence, looking for the step and rhythm in their march. A pace is a step of 24 inches, the total length of a full step in quick time. So when we talk about 3 paces, we're talking about 3 full steps of 24 inches. So you can't have 3 half paces, right? Half paces don't exist. A pace is a step of 24 inches. You can have a half step, you can have a full step, but a pace is that full 24 inches. Quick time. So quick time is the rate of marching at 100 to 120 steps per minute. So quick time is how we do all of our drill. It's the established normal. Mark time is marching in place at the rate of 100 to 120 steps per minute. So the difference between quick time and mark time is only used while marching in place. Quick time is used in all other times where you are marching at that rhythm of 100 to 120 steps per minute. Mark time is marching in place. Double time. Double time is the rate of marching at 180 steps per minute. It is the run, you could say, of the Air Force. Slow time is the rate of marching at 60 steps per minute. This is used during ceremonies and any time of remembrance, things like that. You're going to use slow time. And of course, a step, when we talk about steps per minute, a step is the distance measured from heel to heel between the foot of an individual marching. So you can have a full step, you can have a half step. The step is how we're measuring that, right? The heel to heel between the feet of an individual. When we go into bigger formations, when we go into passing reviews, parades, things like that, we have these kind of key terms. So the ready line. The ready line is a forming line 20 paces to the rear of the final line where troops are formed for a parade or a review at the established time. So everyone's going to line up for the ready line prior to adjutant's call. Final line. Final line is on which the adjutant is formed for the rank of troops and everyone kind of forms up. So if you're thinking about parades, as they march up from the ready line to the final line, that is going to be the place at which they move from. Line of march is the line followed by troops as they pass in review. So they're going to be passing following the line of march. And of course, the reviewing officer is the senior officer participating in the parade or review. A lot of times it's the local commander, things like that, but they're going to be the reviewing officer for the parade or passing review. When we talk about figures, here's a great example of one. So we know what center is. Center is the group of individuals. So you'll notice here that the line isn't on the center of the front here. It is to the right of the individuals. So it is not in between the two because it's 4. It is actually to the right and still on one person, one file here. You'll have depth. We'll talk about, the depth of the individual is 12 inches, but the depth of the group, this formation here, it goes all the way back. And the front, again, is all the way in the front here. And then we have our guide standing in front of the depth for the unit. We'll have rank. So rank is, again, that side by side while they're staying faced forward. So here, dress, right, dress. As I address them, they're actually in a rank, not a column. They're in a rank. If I go to the file, if they turn and they're facing forward, front to back, that is going to be a file. So here you can see the file, and they're addressing that distance. So we have distance, we have rank, we have interval, we have cover, we have depth, all different terms that I can use to specifically identify parts of a formation. Next, you have the formations themselves. So we have different levels, we have groups, we have squadrons, we have flights, we have elements. Elements are the smallest part of a formation. Groups are usually the largest part of a formation. And each part kind of takes a smaller part together. So you'll notice here's a picture of a group formation, and we'll have a squadron within the group and flights within the squadron. So each unit is a part of a formation. A flight is a unit, a part of a squadron. Squadron is a unit, a part of the group. And the group is ultimately the formation here, comprising of those different units. So altogether, a lot of different key aspects to it. And that is the summary of drill itself.